This podcast is brought to you by India Knowledge at Wharton. Please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu/India for more information.
India Imagine was the theme of the 2008 Wharton India Economic Forum that was held in Philadelphia recently. The day-long event attracted several leaders including APJ Abdul Kalam, former president of India, as well as CEOs of Indian companies, nonprofit groups, consulting, and private equity firms. India Knowledge at Wharton brings you one-on-one conversations with these leaders.
Today we are speaking with Suneeta Reddy, who is Executive Director of Finance at Apollo Hospital Enterprises, and she's also on the board of focused health insurance company Apollo DKV. Suneeta, thanks very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
How has medical tourism grown over the years?
It has grown, I wouldn't say substantially, but it's grown by 10%. Initially, 10 years ago, Apollo started focusing on patients outside of India. And it didn't happen with marketing. It was more of a pull of customers towards good quality medicine rather than marketing and pushing them through advertising and marketing. The reason that it happened was that around Southeast Asia, people began to see a value proposition which was high value in terms of clinical outcomes, high quality care at 1/10 of the cost of what they would pay traditionally pay in the United States, and 1/5 of what they would pay in the US, and probably 1/3 of what they would pay in a country like Singapore. So we started attracting to patients from all over Southeast Asia. As it progressed, people began to realize that the India story where healthcare was concerned was improving dramatically. Just 2 years ago, we got the JCI accreditation, which puts us on par with hospitals in the rest of the world, shoulder to shoulder with the Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic. And with that, we started getting patients from the West as well. Most of them use, the internet as a medium through which, they fix their appointments and arrange consults with doctors. But again, it's this value proposition that is really driving consumers. And I would say that currently 10% of our total revenues come from medical tourism. Now that's not really a large amount, and it's grown by 2 to 3%. There are obstacles in the way of this happening. One is that, our airport facilities, if you look at the hospitals that are really doing well, they're connected to international airports, and, they're about maybe 50 to 60 flights. Compare us with Thailand, there are 260 flights, international flights, flying into Bangkok every day. And that makes it really easy for patients to go to Bangkok for medical tourism. Whereas if you compare that with Chennai, where our largest hospital is, there are about 15 flights. And I think one is you have to look at the airport infrastructure. The second thing that you really have to look at is most of the work that comes to India is of the case mix is tertiary care and acute care. It's not the plastic surgeries that you see in Bangkok. It's the high-end orthopedic work, it's cardiology, some of it is oncology. So they come for the really high-end work. And to do that, because we're recognized for that sort of work, to do that, it is quite uncomfortable for patients to make this journey. And we need to smoothen out that process, the 12 hours and 14 hours and the immigration and customs. And we're working at that. When we now have people to facilitate and assist these patients as they come across. Finally, I'd like to say that there is a huge opportunity here, because if you look at the US alone, there are 40 million US who are not insured. If you look at the UK, there are about 250,000 Asians who are in the waiting line with NHS. So this is a huge market. And I believe that the way to address this market is to create a package that will enable them to use Indian facilities. We tried talking to governments and saying, why don't you send patients who don't have treatment, who have no options to India. But then again, we've spoken to benefits companies, etc. I think the only single hurdle facing the US and foreign patients coming here is a legal liability, and the fact that they cannot address their concerns through a legal forum in the United States, whereas they could use the Indian legal system, but it's become a way of life that people want to have that the legal system to back them up in case there is a problem. Now, the incidence of problems is not even 0.01% so far, because our success rates are very good, clinical outcomes are so good, and we are JCI accredited, and patients have the same rights that they would in the US, they would have in India. So they are protected. But I think it's just a hurdle that we need to overcome. And once we've done that, I think, we will be tying up with insurance companies. We will tie up with benefits companies, and to see how we can really assist people who need that type of healthcare.
Have you seen a discernible increase in your Western clientele over the past few years? I know the story has been out for a little while now. I was just curious to know if you've seen an increase.
Yes, we have seen, there has been a rise of about 5%.
And what do you attribute that to then, if it's difficult, say, to access these people through insurance programs or through the government? Is it direct advertising? You mentioned advertising earlier.
It's not at all advertising. It's the fact that, people are so confident that their clinical outcomes will be good. And it's testimony from patients who've been through the whole process that is actually, like I said, it's pulling patients to the system, because we don't market. I mean, you don't see advertisements, but we are now working with CII, and CII is a confederation of Indian industry, which is doing the Brand India. There is a Brand India Foundation, and they have a campaign called Incredible India. So I work with them, and we are now doing Experience Indian Healthcare. And it's just launched, we just launched that campaign, and hopefully we'll see a lot of results happening from that.
Great. Your program combines elements of both Western care and also Eastern medicine. I noticed in a lot of your materials you advertise the point that there's centuries of Eastern medical practice that you rely on as well. Can you talk specifically about how some of those things, what some of those elements are?
Yes. No, we do believe in an integrated healthcare package. In that sense, we talk about allopathy for the actual treatment in terms of surgery, diagnosis, etc. But where rehab is concerned and where well-being is concerned, we've tried to integrate the systems of Ayurveda and Yoga, and it has helped, because when patients go back, they need to readjust to a lifestyle that talks about continuous well-being. And really, I think the key here is, I believe there is a lot of value that we will get from Ayurveda and Yoga.
Certainly a big market in the U.S. too now, or at least a growing market.
It is.
Yeah.
It's strange, but when Patanjali discovered yoga thousands of years ago, there were very few Indians practicing it. And now that it's such a rare, 6% of the world today practices yoga. And it's become famous because it's, the movie stars in the West and people all over America are doing it, and now it's come back to India, and people are now saying, okay, it should become a way of life. Ayurveda is the science of life.
Right. So you are one of the largest healthcare systems in India, correct?
Yes, we
are. The largest. And so I guess one question would be about your community initiatives and how you're reaching out to poorer populations. Can you tell us a little bit about SACH, which the acronym stands for Save a Child's Heart, and maybe some of your other community initiatives as well?
Yeah. I'll start with SACH. SACH is Save a Child's Heart. It also means the truth in Hindi. The reason that we started SACH is that, we came across so many children who had heart disease, and we believed that if an intervention at that stage, when the child is young, will give them a more productive future. So we said, let's do something for children and make them productive adults, because that's what India really needs. And we started this foundation where the hospital does everything free of cost. The consumables, the money for the consumables come from donations. And people have really have donated in a large way. So far, we've completed 500 free surgeries, and our target this year is to do 1,000 every year. And the surgeon does not charge, and the hospital does not. It's just 50,000 rupees for the consumables which come as a donation. So people find it not so difficult to give a check for 50,000, especially when you know you're saving a child's life and you're assuring him of a good future ahead.
Sure.
The second thing that we do is this outreach at a village level, where healthcare is not available. We really wanted to create a sustainable model, not to do it as charity, but create something that was sustainable for the future. So we, in a small village in Chittoor, in fact, your president, Bill Clinton, inaugurated this initiative out of Aragonda. We set up a small hospital, which was a primary care facility. We connected it through telemedicine to our tertiary care facility. So, and then we created an insurance product, which was one rupee a day, which allowed people access into the primary facility. So what would happen is if they felt sick, they would be treated here. They wouldn't have to pay anything except for the 1 rupee a day, 325 rupees. And they would be, if they needed some tertiary care work, they would be connected via telemedicine to our specialists in the main hospital. And they would only have to travel or come to the city when they needed acute care. And I think it's an excellent model. Currently, we have 64 telemedicine centers that connect us to many centers in India. And we are going to work on this model and set up more of these primary care initiatives. The third thing, of course, that we do are these camps where we go into the villages and screen them for cancer. And, India is the only country where cervical cancer still exists. And cancer is a big, the numbers are just growing exponentially, and we believe that early intervention and screening is one of the ways to check the growth and, mortality from cancer. So there are many camps that we do out, from each of our hospitals that have to do with cancer screening. The fourth, of course, is to do with wellness, because preventive healthcare is a big aspect of healthcare. It will be a $1 trillion industry in the next 5 years. And without looking at it from the industry viewpoint, I think healthcare education is important. And Apollo tries to do that through its preventive healthcare schemes and our outreach programs where we do these checkups in villages.
Right. Now, what would you identify as the biggest challenges facing the industry looking forward?
I think, two challenges. The main, of course, is skilled manpower. The fact that the government has not allowed for the corporatization of colleges. They still function at a trust level, which means that, people either pay capitation fees, and the number of seats are so limited by state governments. Health is a state subject. So there's a dichotomy there. Whereas it should be something that, there's a central policy on. It's not a fundamental right that people get health care. It is very much so. In each state, there's a separate policy. And I believe that the need for healthcare education is tremendous. One is for people to learn about healthcare. The second is, of course, is to get skilled manpower. And I think that's a huge challenge, because now our nurses are going to the US, our doctors are migrating to the US, they have been going to the UK. In the US alone, you have 40,000 of the doctors trained in India at a subsidized rate, because these hospitals are trust hospitals and they really don't pay that much. But we really need to double the capacity in terms of training colleges, because if we're going to create the 80,000 beds that are required for us to meet the WHO norms, then we need to staff those 80,000 beds. I think the second issue has to do with the high cost of real estate, because to set up a hospital, you need real estate, you need land, and the way the prices have almost doubled. Traditionally, it was 40% of project cost, and now it's moved to 65%. And I think we need to set up a healthcare REIT like you have in the US to overcome this hurdle.
Right. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us today.
You're most welcome.
For more information, please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu/India.